Let's talk about 5 mixing tips for beginners. Tip number 1, use different speaker sources. A lot of people will do the car test. So you do a mix down or you bounce some just like an MP3 copy of your song that you're working on to your phone or to a CD, whatever, and you take it out to your car and you sit in there and listen. You could drive around and listen to it, whatever, but you're trying to get an understanding of how that's going to sound to someone listening in their car. A lot of people listen to music in their car or on their iPhone, at the gym, through headphones, places like that. Not everyone is sitting in front of a pair of nice studio monitors when they listen to your track. Along with the car test, you should give your song the phone test. So once again, you bounce the song down to your phone and you listen to it on your iPhone. A lot of people, when they hear your song or you share your song on social media or any situation like that, SoundCloud, wherever, a lot of the time we're looking on our phone, they're going to click play and they're going to hear how that sounds. So you want to hear what are they hearing out of their phone. It's going to sound one way out of your monitors, it's going to sound one way in your car, and it's going to sound a different way out of your phone. So you're going to really have to tweak your mix in order to fit that particular sound. And also you can do headphones, like little earbuds, as well as studio monitors, and really just listen out of several different speaker sources and try to find a good balance between different kinds of speakers. Number 2, turn things down, not up. If your guitars are super quiet in the background and you haven't lowered their volume and their original recording was a pretty standard level of volume, it wasn't super weak and quiet, but it also wasn't insanely loud. If your guitars are buried because your drums are crazy loud or your bass guitar is crazy loud, don't turn up your guitars. Don't make everything fight for that top volume space. Bring things down, and you can do a little bit of bringing something up too. You can bring the louder object down while bringing the quieter object a little bit up and try to find a healthy balance. But a lot of the time your mix will start to sound a little bit cleaner if you start dialing things back or down and not boosting everything. Remember, you can always turn the track up on the master. Don't shove everything up as loud as it can go, because then you're going to have a lot of problems actually making everything fit into a nice pocket. Number 3, mixing should be done at a conversation volume most of the time. Don't blast your ears for 20 minutes at a time sitting there with super, super loud mixes trying to hear every part. Do it at about a conversation volume and then only crank up the volume for brief periods of time to make sure that you can hear the bass clearly. When you turn up, that's when you're really going to hear that thundering low end. And if you hear it too loud at a conversation volume, that might mean that when you take it out to your car, you put it on your phone, you might get too much bass. But nonetheless, to save and preserve your ears, make sure you mix at a conversation volume and only turn up when you need to make sure you can hear that low end clearly. Number 4, mix both in mono and in stereo. A lot of DAWs will have a button to take your mix from stereo to mono and vice versa. Should just be a single click of a button so you can easily listen in both. And so what you'll be doing is you'll mix and you'll sit there and make sure, if you're doing a rock song, you got your guitars on the left and the right, you got your bass coming up the middle, you got your drums in the middle and kind of in the surrounding areas depending on how you're doing it. And then also you're going to have your vocals up the center and harmonies, all that stuff. So you're going to have all these sounds going, and you're going to make sure that between the left and the right speaker, you're getting a nice blend of everything. And different music will be, of course, balanced differently. But then you also want to hear when you click it into mono, so everything is coming out of the same area. Instead of having everything come out in a wide span, stereo, left and right, you're having it all come out of that one little spot. What that does is it really showcases different things. A lot of the time what'll happen is you think your vocals are like right in that perfect center sweet spot. You put it mono and now the vocals actually leap forward and everything else sounds back here. And so what you need to do is you need to go, oh, wait. I need to bring those vocals down in volume so they sit back. And then you go back to stereo. What's going to have to happen, at least in my experience, is I have to keep jumping between the two to make sure I find that healthy balance to where I can still hear that vocal or lead guitar line. I write a lot of instrumental music, so I'll have like a lead guitar as the vocal part. So I have to bring that back far enough to where when I set it into mono, which is how we're going to listen on our phones, that I can still hear that nice and clearly. But when I put it into stereo, it doesn't get buried. And it'll actually give you a better mix overall. And it will really allow you to hear what needs to come up, what needs to come down. Because once again, as I said earlier, a lot of people are going to listen to your song on their phone. They're not going to listen to it out of a nice pair of monitors or even a big sound system. Some people will. But most of the time, it's going to come down to, how does this sound on my phone? That's your first impression for most people and most of your audience. And being able to mix between stereo and mono is going to massively, massively help you get better mixes. Number 5. This is probably the most important tip of all. Get a good performance. If you're at home and you're writing a song and you're going to release this song and you're at the stage of mixing, the biggest thing that could get in your way as far as making your mix sound really good and trying to make it sound as professional as you can is bad performance. If your strings are old and dead, if you're not playing quite in time, if your layered guitars don't quite line up right, anything like that. If the tones are just terrible, all around, these things will really prevent you from getting a good mix. If you have a great tone, if you have a great performance, you have new fresh strings, everything's nice and in tune, then you're going to have a lot easier of a time making that mix sound good. And you'll have to do less to the recording because the performance is already good. You'll need to do a lot less to it. I've had to take, just in my own recordings, I've had to really do a lot to them to try to make them sound okay. And then what I really realized is I could have spent less time, probably gone back, redialed in my tone, or maybe put on fresh strings before I learned that you needed to have fresh strings when you record. And I could have just re-recorded the part and really, really took the time to nail it. And then I would have barely had to do anything to my mix in order to make it sound really good. So prepare for your recording. Play everything to a click or play everything to a drum loop or whatever your process is. If you're doing metal, you're going to need to double track those guitars. And so you really need to make sure you can either do it to a click or a drum track, and that you can do it just about the same every single time. So you can really, really nail those layers so they're right there on top of each other and there's no space between them, because you can really hear a difference. Get a good performance, dial in your tone. That will ultimately help your mixing a lot. Bonus tip. Learn what compression is. I'm not here to go through all the different types of compression. Hell, I don't know everything about all the different types of compression. But one thing that's really helped me in terms of just making my recordings sound better on my own and just getting more comfortable with mixing is learn what compression is. The basic idea is that compression turns the peaks down and the valleys up. So instead of having really, really quiet parts and really, really loud parts of a single track, it compresses everything within a certain range. But there's different types of compression. There's 2-to-1, 4-to-1, all these different types of compression, side chain compression, parallel compression, all these different types of compressions. Some of them will apply to the music you're doing, and some of them will not. But you need to learn the basics of compression, and there are plenty of great videos. Rick Beato's channel, great information on that kind of stuff, and he has a really extensive video on compression, so you might want to check his out. Look into that. That can really help you start to understand why you do or don't need it. And as another quick little tip, distorted guitars generally don't need any compression. A lot of the best mixing engineers don't use compression on distorted guitars because distortion is already kind of its own form of compression. They're already compressed out the wazoo, so you don't really need to compress them anymore. So if you're doing that, you might want to stop and then really listen to how, if you compress everything else correctly and don't compress your heavy guitars, how it lets your performance breathe a little bit more and lets those guitars kind of have a little bit more life to them. But learn about compression. All right, guys. Hope these tips helped. Please let me know down below what other topics and subjects that you would like to see these videos on. or feel free to DM me. If you know anyone that's interested in private guitar lessons, please feel free to contact me at pontiusguitar@gmail.com and let me know, and we'll get hooked up. Alright guys, see you later.